I bring you today my Cabalist build using the Lost Soul set. The set evolves around boosting the raised skeleton skill of the Necromancer class and the Hellhound skill of the Occultist class. Together they really complement each other. The skeletons don't have the highest health, so they will have problems surviving boss encounters. And that's where the Hellhound comes into play. It has a much higher health pool, a skill that generates threat, so they pull aggro, and even a skill that reduces the damage of enemies. Combined, they make a really solid pet build, being able to do Shattered Realm 80+ and super bosses. Also, since I wanted to make a skeleton army theme, I included the Revenant Devotion, which summons an additional 6 skeletons. So in total we will be running around with 20. Just don't expect to have all of your skeletons up at all times. High burst damage of bosses and high AoE damage can still kill them. But that will really only start occurring at high Shattered Realm layers and super bosses. I will go first over the skill and devotion choices, and then over the item choices and how they relate to those skills. Starting with the Necromancer class. Summon skeletons will be one of our main pets. With item bonuses, we will max the skill out at 26 to maximize their damage and base health. Undead Legion will increase the amount of skeletons we summon and reduce the cooldown of the skill. 20 points is the breakpoint of getting a +7 to summons. The last 2 points will only help reducing the cooldown. In Will of the Crypt I put as many points as I can to increase the damage and armor. 1 point in Bone Harvest, it will allow us to trigger a devotion skill. And with the Soul Harvest modifier we can get a 5-second buff to our pets. The base skill has a cooldown of 2.5 seconds, so we can keep the buff up at all times. Just important to note is that you have to hit an enemy with the skill. Only casting the skill alone won't give you the buff. I put 1 point in Reap Spirit. It gives us another way to apply one of our devotion skills. And it's a pet, so it gets all the benefits from our items and buffs. 1 point in Spectral Binding, and then 10 out of 10 in Spectral Wrath. At first I wasn't sure if I wanted to take this buff, because the Spectral Wrath skill gets triggered when enemies hit you, not your pets. But after some testing, I found out that it really gets triggered a lot. It also spreads well with its AoE effect and has only a 1.3 second cooldown. It will really help us to maximize our pets' damage, decreasing the vitality resists, which will be our main damage type. And the reduced attack speed will help us and our pets to survive better. I put as many points as I could in Call of the Grave, giving our pets another huge damage buff. And I put 1 point in Mark of Torment, giving a 36% damage absorption, which will help a lot when we get hit by damage spikes or if we ever get aggro. I put 1 point in every skill of the Blight Fiend. The pet itself has a high health pool, even with only 1 point invested. It generates threat, so it helps us and our other pets to survive better, and it reduces defensive abilities, so our pets are more likely to hit and crit. Lastly, as many points as possible in Master of Death, giving a huge damage increase to our pets, and transforming a large chunk of their physical damage to vitality damage. We put 1 point in Curse of Frailty. It allows us to activate another devotion skill, and the reduced movement speed can be helpful. But the vulnerability modifier will be more important, mostly because it reduces vitality resists, which is our pet's main damage type. A few points in Blood of Dreek. This effect will be applied to nearby allies, which includes our pets. so they can get the damage increase of the buff, and we can also heal them with it. And since the buff applies to our pets, so does this modifier aspect of the Guardian. It will increase their vitality damage, and it helps to max out our and their poison resists. I put 1 point in every skill of the Summon Familiar pet, except for this one. In this one I put 5. The Man Flesh skill will heal our pets, and this one gives a buff to us and our pets, increasing the elemental resistance and giving them base elemental damage. And with the help of our rings, this elemental damage will be completely converted to vitality damage, but more on that later. A few points in the Bonds of Bismiel buff to increase our pets' health, and then 12 out of 12 in Manipulation to increase their damage and speed. Max out Summon Hellhound, and then put 1 point in every skill of it. With this one, it generates additional threat, and the last one reduces the target's damage. I tried playing with a maxed out Hellhound before, where I put as many points as possible in all of its skills, but the overall damage to every other pet I would lose isn't worth it. It's much better using those points in damage increasing buffs like Blood of Dreeg, the Bonds of Bismiel, Call of the Grave, and Master of Death. In our devotions, we want to reach Revenant, Dying God, and Ishtag. I tried a bunch of different combinations, but this setup feels the best for an all-round build. Ishtag doesn't seem that strong first. The 25% damage absorption can be helpful. The increased defense and offense stat is always good, but the one thing that makes this skill insanely valuable is the taunt ability. When you get hit and trigger the effect, not only do you get damage absorption, but also all of your pets get a taunt ability. With this, you nearly never get aggro, and if you get it, then only for a very short time. I didn't know how strong this effect was until I played without it. Without it, you will pull the aggro of bosses a lot, and at higher Shattered Realms or super bosses, that means you won't survive long. Let me show you the skill route now. First, I would put 1 point in purple, and then max out Shepherd's Crook. We don't need a completion bonus from this devotion, but the buff it provides will be very strong early on. Next, put 1 point in yellow, and then max out Panther, giving us bonuses to our pets. With the blue points we got, we have access now to Hound. Max it out for another health increase to our pets and armor increase for us. To reach the Staff of Radish, we only need 3 more red points. So put 1 point in red, and then max out Jackal. Next, max out the staff, giving us and our pets defensive abilities, resistances and damage. To reach Ishtag, we still need some yellow and blue points. So max out Crane next. It gives more resistances to our pets. Then you can max out Lion, giving more pet bonuses. And with 3 points in Eel, we will unlock Ishtag. You can take the purple and yellow point out from the middle and then put points in here. With the taunt ability, you will have a much easier time surviving. Bind it to any permanent buff. Now we only need 2 more red points to reach Revenant and Dying God. So max out Night Talon. It will give more damage bonuses to our pets. With this we finally get access to Revenant. When we put points in here, we get a nice health leech to our pets, and the last skill will summon 6 skeletons that reduce our enemies' resists. I bind it to Curse of Frailty. The completion bonus also gives us 1 more blue and red point, so now you can take the red point back out of Crossroads. With this we have exactly 7 points left, so we can max out Dying God, giving more bonus damage to our pets with this and this skill, And the Hungering Void will also be another massive damage increase for them. We will trigger it with Bone Harvest. For items, we are using the Full Lost Souls set. The 4th set piece really pushes the skeletons from an average pet to being much more viable. Plus 60% health, 20% physical resist and an additional 3 summons is really amazing for them. The component on our weapon will be the Seal of Might, giving a passive buff to us and our pets, which helps to maximize the resistances. And for the augment, I'm using Bismiel's Control, giving a nice damage and armor boost to our pets. There are other solid choices, depending if you wanted more defense for yourself or your pets. In the offhand, we are using the Flesh Warped Archive. It can roll very good benefits for our pets and our exact build setup. The inherent damage increase to Hellhound and reduced summoning time will be very helpful. So even at damage spikes, where the Hellhound might die, we can easily resummon him. For the component and augment, I'm using the same ones as on the beacon. I have 2 alternatives if you wanted to be more tanky. First, the Lich Guard Shield, giving you some nice defensive stats, and the inherent skill is very strong. At 33% you get a 80% damage absorption for 5 seconds. The other choice is the Dread Guard, which gives us also nice defense and the right skill increases we need in our setup, including a +1 to all Necromancer skills. Our helm gives an additional skeleton summon and reduces the summon cooldown. For the component, I'm using the Sacred Blading for the resistances and armor absorption. I ended up with 92% absorption, which is a great number to be at. I want to mention that for the augments on all of your armor pieces, you don't have to follow this guide, because the resistances you lack will depend on the rolls on your green items. There is nothing much to say about the shoulders. For the component, I'm using Living Armor for resistances and armor absorption. The last piece of the set is the Amulet, giving more cooldown reduction to the Hellhound summon. In combination with the offhand, I ended up with a 1.7 second cooldown. The Amulet also boosts the Hellhound with a good amount of vitality damage, which is the main damage type we are focusing on. For the component, Seal of Ancestry, giving a nice health boost and damage absorption to us. The augment is Atep's Will, giving another boost to our health and armor, and the pet bonus will help to get our pets bleeding resist in a good spot. The only resist that is a bit low is Pierce resist. Everything else is nearly maxed out or maxed out. And we even have nearly a 40% physical resist, which is amazing. For rings, I'm using 2 times the Spiritbinder Glyph. The damage conversion to vitality will be very helpful. So our Hellhound's fire damage gets converted, our Familiar's elemental buff, its attack, and the cold damage from our Reap Spirit. This conversion in combination with the vitality damage boost to our pets and the vitality resist reduction from our debuffs really help to focus and maximize our DPS. Another reason why the Spiritbinder ring is so good is the Master of Spirits buff it grants. And if you wear 2 of those rings, you can have 2 buffs active at the same time, increasing our pet damage immensely. When we spam our Curse of Frailty, our Bone Harvest and Reap Spirit, we will easily trigger it. I'm using the Bloodied Crystal on both of them, giving a defensive boost and bleeding resist. And on one ring I'm using Menda's Powder to max out their Chaos resist and giving them a health boost, and on the other one using the Survivor's Ally to boost their damage and health. For gloves we are using the Bone Scavenger's Death Grips, giving a +2 to the Bonds of Bismiel buff and +2 to raise skeletons. But what is even better is the bonus to our pets. With the physical damage conversion from the gloves, in combination with the Master of Death buff, we can convert 100% of our minions' physical damage to vitality. And the acid damage conversion will help to convert our Blight Fiend's acid damage and the acid damage our pets get from Blood of Drig. On top of that, we can raise up to 3 ghosts on enemy's death. And with our elemental damage conversion, they will deal pure vitality damage. So those gloves are really insane for this setup. For the component, I'm using Enchanted Earth, giving me health and armor. The Fiend Flesh Greaves give some boost to our Blight Fiend and Hellhound, a decent damage boost to pets, and a 10,000 hit point shield every 20 seconds to us. The component will be the Mark of Mokdrogen for the health and movement speed. The belt is the Shadow Fiend's Cord. The +1 to all Necromancer and Occultist skills is super strong. As an alternative, you could use this belt, giving +1 to all Occultist skills and, depending on the rolls, some other great pet benefits. This belt will also convert the elemental damage of our pets to vitality, so if you wanted to use one other ring, then you can use this belt instead. You could use, for example, the Marrow Band, which is a good choice, especially the granted skill that summons a guardian with a taunt ability and a lot of health can be very useful. For the pants, I'm using the Bismial Sect ones, since they can give a nice overall stat boost to pets, and are overall much better than any epic or legendary alternative. I'm using the Ancient Armor Plate as a component for the absorption and armor increase. For the chest armor, we're using the Necrolord's Shroud. It gives us skill points to our skeleton summons, and it gives us another buff that increases our pet's vitality damage and health. For the component, I'm using Titan Plating. The Wendigo Gaze Medal gives us an additional skeleton summon, and depending on the rolls, some very nice boosts to our main pet skills. I'm using the Runebound Topaz here. With it, I can bring my stun resist to 80%. Lastly, my relic choice is the Mokdrogen one. It gives another defensive buff on top of more damage and resists to our pets, and a +1 to all skills. I show you now my Shattered Realm 85 run. From the feeding of it, the build can easily run up to 90, maybe even Shattered Realm 100.